Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Sustainable Activism webinar. This is a special one because it's for Animal Activist Appreciation Month, which is put together by In Defense of Animals. And this is a special time of year we get to celebrate the good works of all of the activists and the whole variety of good works. And so we wanted to put together a variety of programs for you, and today we have a very special one. So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Lisa Levinson, and I'm the director of the Sustainable Activism campaign for In Defense of Animals. And we host these webinars every month to give activists emotional and spiritual tools to continue their activism for the long haul. And for today, we thought we'd help with some self-care and also to improve our finances so we can actually enhance our activism. So our special guest speaker today is Adam Kol, and I'm going to give you a few details about him. My privilege to do so. So Adam Kol is a money and relationships expert and coach, a certified mediator, a speaker, and a former tax attorney and financial advisor. Informed by perspectives of equity and social justice, he advocates for people to thrive financially in their lives and in their relationships. Adam earned his JD from the Duke University School of Law, as well as an LLM in tax law from the NYU School of Law, New York University. So it's a pleasure to have Adam on board with us today. Hi, Adam. How you doing?
Hi, Lisa. I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. This is a pleasure.
Yay! And also want to take a moment and thank everybody who's joined us today. This is such a treat to share this time together where we can gain new skills, and I'm very eager to hear what you have to say, Adam. I've got a lot of improving to do on my finances, and this is something that often activists don't think about, and so we really wanted to address it, to actually talk about it, and that's why we're grateful to have you here today.
Yes, absolutely. And you're not alone, Lisa. It's not just activists. It's really people all across the country and the world. I've recently been reading, I think about 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. So this is a really important topic to see if we can get people more grounded and empowered around their finances.
Oh, I love that. Grounded and empowered. Sounds excellent. Well, I'm going to let you take it away. And
Great.
so, yeah, wonderful. And thanks again to everyone for joining us. Stay tuned later for some Q&A, but for now, Adam, it's all yours.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And thank you, everybody who's joined and anybody who'll be watching this on replay or later. And before I get started, I just wanted to say, it was about maybe 3 years ago that I first heard about this kind of work that In Defense of Animals was doing, and I heard about the Activist Support Helpline, and I thought it was such a brilliant idea. And now it's just a pleasure to be able to find a way for me to contribute, given a topic I'm really passionate about that's really important to having people have thriving lives and relationships. So I'm going to switch to share my screen. And I'll just give me a moment to get that started. I'm going to have a presentation to share with you all. Let's go into presentation mode. Okay, great. So this is the initial slide. And just before we get going, the presentation is called Personal Finance for Activists. And I think it's important to say a few words. First is my goal here is to create a space and a container for these conversations. This is a topic I've been passionate about since I was a little kid, was business and finance, and I ended up being a financial advisor and then a tax lawyer, and now I coach and help people and couples deal with their finances and the stress it has in their lives, and to really help them build greater intimacy in their relationships and more empowered in their lives. And but what I'm sharing here is just some of what I've learned, right? And my goal is for this to be as inclusive as possible. Inevitably, when we're talking about money, people are going to have their own particulars to their situation. And so while I'm speaking here in some level of generalities, and some of these things may apply to you, some may not, and that's okay. But my hope is that this is as welcoming as possible for everybody, whether you're an animal advocate or not, and whatever your financial situation is. If anything you feel like I'm saying is inappropriate or not being sensitive to different people's needs and life situations, feel free to let me know in the chat or send me a message afterward. I'd love to hear from you. I always want to be as inclusive of everybody as I possibly can be. Another note is that there's a lot in this presentation in a short time. Each of these slides and topics I would love to talk with you for days about. So if you get overwhelmed, that's okay. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but see what resonates with you and grab a hold of it and see if you can start making some progress in your own life. And feel free to reach out to me with questions and maybe even more importantly, feel free to start having these conversations with your friends and your family. Okay. So, why this topic? Well, there's probably a reason you're here, and I want to honor all of those. And for me, why I chose this topic is because financial stress is a big issue in people's lives and relationships. It's the number one cause of divorce is financial stress, which was stunning to me when I found it out, but really led me on the path of doing the work I do now with couples. It also touches all our parts of our life. This grocery cart icon is meant to indicate, we're thinking about, and even if it's in the back of our minds, we're spending and then thinking about money and our finances constantly. We spend money on so many things all day, and there's pretty much no real way to escape this, right? Third is that it's a taboo topic for people. I've had somebody in one of my workshops say to me that talking about money was just the absolute most taboo thing, any more than anything else in their family. And that was mind blowing to me because there's a lot of topics people are afraid to talk about in families, but like money was the serious number one, right? And I think that was a reality check. And so my goal is that money moving forward is not a taboo, right? It's rather something we can be open about in ways that actually empower us and keep us moving forward and help us achieve our goals in life. Another reason that I want to talk about it is because as activists, we tend to be really giving people, and we have big missions, and our organizations have big missions. And so there's kind of this almost perpetual need, right, for time and money, since there's always work to be done. And it just creates this conversation for us of like, there's an urgent need to help animals or humans now, and how do we manage that all, right? And so this particular presentation is going to have a lot of themes geared in particular toward activists, mixed with just general personal finance things that I think are really universally applicable. And one thing to just frame it, we might spend a lot of time and energy on our advocacy work, and sometimes we don't take care as well of our financial needs and responsibilities. And so sometimes people just kind of want to stay away from it. It's kind of scary. They're like worried it will be more stressful if they dealt with it. But what I want to tell you is that you will actually find yourself more peaceful and more powerful and more grounded in who you are and what you're up to when you tackle this. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm really excited to dive a little bit more into the material. Thanks to Lisa for introducing me before. Just a little bit more about me. Some of this has been covered already. I've done lots of different advocacy, from leafleting to street activism to pay-per-views where people watch a film about where their food comes from. And most recently, I volunteer with, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, Chili's on Wheels, which is a wonderful nonprofit started by Michelle Carrera in New York City and spread across the U.S. now. And we go to folks who are experiencing homelessness. For me in Oakland, California, it's tent encampments, and we share healthy plant-based food with them, personal care products and clothing, things like that, and have conversations about, why is veganism a part of our mission as an organization. This photo is from my last big international trip, which was July of 2017. I went to Colombia and Peru, and I believe this photo is in Colombia. It's a gorgeous country. And then one other note, I'm a lifelong musician. I've been playing piano since I'm 4, and I'm really excited that I just joined a band here in San Francisco, playing a lot of fun music. It's a cover band, and we're in rehearsal now, and if you're in the area, look out for performances coming out soon. We'd love to see you. Okay, one last bit of housekeeping before we dive in is a little disclaimer, and with my background as a lawyer, I take these very seriously. Essentially here, it's just what I'm speaking about is hypothetical and meant to just be general. Nothing here is specific advice for you or your situation, and certainly should not be construed as tax or other legal advice. If you do have questions of the sort, I always recommend you speak to your own particular tax or financial professional. But this information is here for informational purposes. I'll give you just a few moments to read that over. All right. The roadmap for this presentation, so you know what to expect. The first topic we're going to talk about is working for the cause, meaning like animal rights, or not, or frankly, whatever causes you're passionate about. and different considerations around that. Then we're going to do goals and budgeting, which is there's going to be two different slides about that. There's a lot of great material there. Third, we're going to talk about self-care and finances and how those two are interrelated. And then fourth, we're going to talk about something that I really love called your money story, really understanding your own relationship that started pretty much the day you were born, and your own relationship to money. And it can really open the door to figure out how that might be impacting you and some of your habits and choices now. Then, as Lisa mentioned earlier, we'll have a Q&A, so an opportunity for you to ask questions. And at the end of the video, I'll share my information and how to get in touch if you want to continue the conversation with me in any way. And so here we go. Great. Okay, so working for the cause or not, right? So again, animal rights or whatever you're passionate about. I know some of the folks on this call were passionate about many different issues, myself included. So the first concept is something I learned back when I was studying economics in my undergraduate, which is trade-offs, right? And this is just the idea that for any one course of action you take, there's an impact, right? It might be other courses of action you didn't take, maybe it costs money, right? Whatever those are. And I want to encourage you when you think about your career, it's really tempting for a lot of us to say, I'm really passionate about animal rights, I want to work for the cause, and it's noble and fantastic, right? And what I always want for people is I don't have advice that they should do X, Y, or Z. What I want for them is to be able to understand the reality of the world and their personal situation, really face to face with it, right? I know what's up, I know what's not up, and from there I can make a powerful choice, right? Not out of like a sense of obligation, not out of a sense of scarcity or guilt, right? They can make it fully empowered, right? I know what I've got going on, I know what I want, and I'm making this choice for myself because I've determined it's the best choice for me. So I want you to consider, right, all of these things fall into that bucket. So with trade-offs, sometimes people might take a job that's more aligned with their ethics, and they might make less money because of it, right? So this happened for me in a couple of different ways. So for me, my first job out of law school and after my master's in tax was at a big accounting firm, and I was doing what they call state and local tax, and I was helping big companies like pharmaceuticals, oil and gas companies save money on their taxes. While it was intellectually interesting, it wasn't fulfilling my heart. And I actually ended up taking a year about where I was not working, and out of my own pocket, without getting paid, I was doing animal advocacy work for an entire year, right? And that year was really rewarding, and I learned a whole lot, and I made a big contribution. And at the same time, it was also a heavy burden, right? I look now to where I am starting a business a little over a year ago, and I said, wow, there's a lot of money that I lost out on during that period of time, right? And that money would alter my current financial situation if I still had it, right? And again, not bad or good, just to be thinking about everything in its complexity. And then I actually went and worked for a nonprofit as well, where I made considerably less than when I worked for the for-profit accounting firm. And it was an issue that was close to my heart, working on housing issues. But there are, again, just the trade-offs, less money, working for a cause that's close to my heart, working with people with similar political values, right? You just have to think about how you weigh these things. And so here's a few other topics to consider and how you weigh them. Really important is your well-being, right? And this looks a number of ways. So some of these things we can actually put numbers to, and if you can, I recommend it. Like, what are your needs? How much money do you spend, or how much money do you want to spend, right? Another thing is, what would it do for your kind of how you feel? If you're working full-time for an animal rights organization, do you think that's likely to cause burnout? How's it going to impact your ability to do advocacy work in your off hours, right? Are you going to be able to really do, 10, 12, 13 hours a day of activism, or is that going to cause you to burn out, right? And that one is really relevant to also the fourth point of your future, which we'll get to in a moment. A third thing is, especially for working for animal rights causes or nonprofits in general, you want to consider the market size. So there's a small but growing number of vegans in the country, and there's a small but growing vegan industry. In a smaller industry, if there's a lot of people who want to work in it, in the supply and demand realm, for those of you who are familiar, you can imagine it might keep wages a little bit lower, salaries a little lower. So you'll just want to be aware of that, right? Make sure you're thinking about the salary. One other thing to consider is that as our movement grows and as veganism grows, the market size of the vegan market may also grow, and there might be tons of opportunities, and there might be something really powerful available if you're one of the first people in your space, right? You're the first vegan person who does X, Y, or Z. That could make you really powerful as it expands and becomes a really hot industry because you'll be the first one in the door. So just some things to think about again. Um, your future, right? There are animals suffering right now. There are humans suffering right now. And so it feels really urgent, and it is really urgent, right? At the same time, I want you to also, you can hold that and hold your future and think, okay, how do I want my life to look? What are my needs and wants? Do I want a family, human or non-human? Do I want to have a significant other? When would I like to retire? How would I like to live? Where would I like to live? These are really important considerations for many reasons. And when we're making career choices, they're definitely really powerful to think about. So by all means, have the short-term perspective and the urgency. And I also encourage you to just consider your medium and long term. Okay, so last thing on this slide is 80,000 hours. Some of you may have heard of this. It's an effective altruist organization that helps people make career choices. So obviously there's a lot of traditional channels, career coaches and the like out there for career choices. 80,000 hours takes a different approach. Effective altruism, if you don't know, is this movement that is trying to use like data and scientific rigor to help people make choices to do as much good as they can, right? To be as efficient with their time and money in doing good in the world. And 80,000 hours is in this tradition. And at the very least, whether or not you fully subscribe to effective altruist principles or not, I think it's an interesting place to look, and it'll have you thinking in some rigorous, concrete ways about your choices. Okay. So I also wanted to plug an organization that I volunteer with as well called Vegan Leaders in Corporate Management. You can find us on LinkedIn. We have over 3,000 members now, all vetted vegans who work in big companies or some sort of corporate adjacent job. And we actually just launched our first program ever where I'm one of the coaches helping people launch pro-veg, pro-animal initiatives in their workplace. And we're wrapping up this month. There's another group coming in March. It's been really fun and exciting. And that's a really great place to connect with other vegans who are in different kinds of professions. So I recommend checking it out. And if you're interested, go ahead and message the admins and join the group. Might be another great resource for you. One thing that I want to surface, right, is with your jobs. So if you work at a vegan organization, you may not have to do advocacy, at least along vegan lines there, right? If you work for a non-vegan organization, you may very well feel pushed to talk about veganism or have vegan events or somehow share what you're passionate about. And I think this is great, right? It's obviously part of the program I'm coaching and leading at Vegan Leaders in Corporate Management. And just, again, be thoughtful about the impact that has on you personally, the impact that that has on your career prospects. This could have potential impacts down the line, good or bad. So, again, just want you to be thinking about all these things. Okay, now we're going to move to a really fun topic for me. A lot of people don't find it so fun, but hopefully you will after this. Goals and budgeting. So we've got 2 slides on this one. The first topic is capitalism, that pesky old thing. So as an advocate for many different causes, there's a lot of people who are not big fans of capitalism. And I have many frustrations with it. I think it does a lot of things really poorly, right? It sustains a lot of the other forms of oppression that we see, unfortunately, throughout our world. And so there's a lot of, I think, resentment of the economic system that we live in, right? And so people just maybe want to avoid it, right? That resentment. They're like, I don't want to deal with money. I don't like capitalism. And I'm like, how I handle this, if you hate it, I totally get it. That is like completely fine, right? And I want to encourage you to look and see, how could you hold your feelings about capitalism and also your goals in your life, right? And how can you start to see money as a tool to help you be empowered personally and perhaps even help others and give to the causes that you want to give, right? So that's a perspective that some clients have found useful is, you know what, you can just see your money as a tool for you to help achieve your goals. And your goals are noble. And so therefore, right, it can be something that actually helps you. So my personal opinion is I think you can coexist with capitalism in this way, even if you're also looking to overthrow it at the same time. And just on the personal side, right, this has been a challenging topic for me. I'm still very much working on my mindsets around capitalism, guilt and shame about earning money or not having money, right? An abundance mindset, as you sometimes people talk about it, versus like scarcity. This is not easy. It's an ongoing journey, but hopefully this will be a step forward for you from wherever you're at, the conversation we're having today. Okay, so the next topic is what I call the four essentials. And these are the four things that you absolutely must know if you're going to make any real progress on your finances. And without it, I like to say you're just kind of poking around in the dark. And I haven't seen Bird Box yet, but when I saw the clip of, I think it's Sandra Bullock there, I was like, okay, that's what people are until they know the four essentials. So I'm not going to keep it a mystery for you. We're going to flip to the next slide. We're going to talk about them briefly. This you might want to write down if any of this is new to you. So I like to think about these in two kind of tandems. First is assets. This is anything you have that's worth money. So maybe you have a car, you own a home, maybe you have a really nice instrument, like I have a really nice keyboard, right? Anything like that is an asset. And then there's debts. Debts are things that you owe. So really commonplace ones are credit card debt, student loan debt. You may also have a mortgage on a home. That's just a particular kind of debt. Or you might even owe money on your car. So what I would recommend doing, one of the first things is to just list out, these are my assets, here's what they're worth. These are my debts, here's how much I owe. And just for a point that sometimes trips people up, let's say you have a car that's worth about $6,000 and you owe $4,000. The way you might want to handle that is to write $6,000 asset for your car and then $4,000 debt also for your car. And if you're doing the math, you might say, oh, okay, so it's actually worth $2,000 in the sense that if I sold it and got 6 and then I paid off the $4,000 I owed, I'd be left with 2. Okay. The next bucket is what are commonly known as income and expenses. And I think these should be familiar to everybody. But, maybe in the privacy of your own home or work, wherever you are, you could raise your own hand if you do not have a complete 100% grasp on your income and expenses on kind of a monthly and annual basis, right? And if you took the direction, I suspect there were a fair number of hands, if not a lot of hands that went up, okay? And that's perfectly normal, and that can change starting today. So I want to really encourage you to start tracking your income, and especially if you're at some sort of job where you get paid every 2 weeks and it's regular, that's actually pretty straightforward. For someone who's a small business owner and does some freelance gigs like I do, it can be a little more complicated. But if you start tracking it, eventually, within a few months, you will start to see the patterns. Same thing with your expenses, okay? And these are, of course, absolutely essential because we want to look at how all four of these are interplaying, and then we'll get a real sense of where we're at. And sometimes it's going to be better than you think. Sometimes it'll be exactly how you think. Sometimes it might be worse than you think, right? But either way, where you start to find your power is by getting present to the reality of your situation. And then from there, you can start to move forward and build. Okay, let me see what's next here. Checking my speaker notes. All right, great. We'll go back. So now we're going to talk about goals and vision. This is absolutely key. Most people, if they start using a budget, they get kind of worn out. They feel really restricted. And the main thing I've seen that's really powerful in combating this is to have a vision, have goals. Because when you do, when you're like, I'm doing this for my kids, for my parents, for my dream home, for this vacation, to make a really significant donation to an organization I care a lot about, right? Then when it's the choice between going out versus eating in, you can say, you know what? I'm going to choose to stay in because it's in line with my goals, right? Or if your goals and your vision is to live the most luxurious life you can while you're alive on this planet, then you can, with a clear head, say, I'm going to go out to eat because that's my goal, right? And what you can do when we do the next point, budgeting, there's no particular way. The goal of a budget is not to spend as little as possible. The goal of a budget is mindful spending, okay? And if you want to write something down, write down mindful spending, right? That is what this is all about, just being mindful with your money. Why am I making the choices I'm making? Are they really aligned? Are they based on some emotional trigger or some history I have? And or are they based on what my real wants, needs, and goals are? So yeah, keep this in mind, right? And when you sit down, and this might be a process you do through meditation, through writing it down, through talking to a friend, um, make a note of these things, and you can constantly refer to them, right? Especially when you feel stuck or restricted, and it'll help you create the right kind of Goldilocks budget that is, not too strict and also not too allowing of all kinds of expenses. You'll find the spot that's right for you given those goals. And the way now, so budgeting, right? Well, like, first of all, I don't know how to do that. Second of all, I don't know even what I put on my budget. I don't know how much to spend. Well, so for the second question, what I do with clients is once you have your goals and your vision, you can actually work backwards and figure out what do you need to be saving or earning on a monthly or yearly basis to achieve your goals. And then you have your budget that actually helps you execute on that. Okay. One note that I think is relevant to this call. Veganism, we know, is actually not too expensive. You can do it in a pretty inexpensive way. You can see, I think, behind me, I don't know how visible it is, but we got like all our dried beans back there and our spices, a bunch of bananas. So I really like the vantage point I have for the camera. There's also a photograph of a turkey who one of my roommates once saved behind me, so I thought it was a really appropriate setup for this presentation. But back to the budgeting in particular, right? So working backwards from your goals and then creating a monthly budget. There's a few different apps and tools I recommend. One of them is called Mint. Mint is probably the oldest and biggest player in the budget space, so you might want to check it out. There's another one called You Need a Budget, or YNAB. It's really popular these days. And they do similar things, right? You give them access to scrape the data from your bank accounts, credit card accounts, loan accounts, and then they look at your expenses and your income. They try and put it in categories for you, which you can edit, and the goal is to give you a picture of what you're doing. A third app, especially if you share finances or share money inside your relationship, is one called Honeydew, HONEYDUE. I really love this app because it's built specifically for couples. And it's also on a tip basis, so you can pay either nothing or give them some amount each month. The fourth option is to just make your own spreadsheet. That's what I do. Now, I'm a finance geek and I love working with this stuff, but I find that really enjoyable. Nothing ever gets miscategorized. I know exactly where things are going. And on this note, I recommend having a regular check-in. As you're getting your finances in order, budgeting some time, pun not intended, like maybe an hour a day or an hour a week, whatever it is until you get where you need to. And once you're up to speed, now I have some time allocated every Friday morning, so I'll be working on mine tomorrow. And at this point, it usually takes me 10 to 20 minutes or so to update my expenses and see where I'm at. Okay. And once you start seeing your expenses and noticing how much you're spending in various categories, it may very well be a huge wake-up call. I was doing my budgets before and I said, oh my God, I'm spending like $450 a month on dining and entertainment-related expenses. And I saw a huge opportunity to cut that back, right? And then I got more in the realm. I think this month was about 250. My goal is actually 200. And that's actually a perfect segue to the next thing, which is like, especially right now, if this is feeling overwhelming, it's like, take a breath with me. And it's like, mistakes can and will happen. And this may take some time to get you where you want to be, but the key is about taking the first step in the positive direction and keeping on taking those steps. And when mistakes happen, because they will, when you go over budget or you missed a charge somewhere, just be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, right? And on the other side of that is celebrate your successes. Go do something that you really love. Be proud of yourself. Give yourself a gift, whatever that looks like. Whether it's a gift that costs money or not is up to you, right? But really celebrate these successes. Celebrate the credit card you paid off. Celebrate the first payment you made on that loan you've been avoiding. Celebrate the $100 or $1,000 savings goal that you hit, right? These are momentous things, and just know that if you are consistent about it, you're going to keep moving forward really powerfully. Now, there's one really key thing in budgeting that a lot of people miss, and I want to share it with you now. So most people think about, well, okay, a budget is a monthly budget. I'm going to look at my monthly expenses, right? And that's essential. But I recommend having two, kind of like a bifurcated budget. Over here on the top, maybe your monthly expenses that are regular, things like rent, Dining out, of course, that can fluctuate, but like you have a sense of what it is, right? Eating out, utilities, any regular loan payments you have. And then you want a separate bucket for what I like to call periodic payments. These are things that will come up from time to time. And if they were included in your monthly budget, it would throw it way out of whack, right? So a great example might be it's December. Maybe you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah. You get a bunch of gifts for people. Oh my goodness, my $1,000 budget. Well, I just spent 500 on gifts. I can't possibly stay within my $1,000 budget. Well, that's why you have a separate bucket for periodic expenses, right? And you never know exactly what these will be, but if you're diligent, you can start to estimate. So, for example, maybe you might have certain needs. You want to allocate a certain amount for medical expenses. And sometimes those things are very irregular, right? You might pay several hundred or $1,000 at a time. Whether those are for you or family members, whether they're human or non-human family members, vacations and other big events. My sister got married last year. We had to fly out. I had to buy a tuxedo, give her a gift, right? All of these things. And you just want to think through, what are the things that I tend to run into in my life? If I go in November and fly home to my family for Thanksgiving, well, that's an expensive flight. It might be $400, $500, $600, right? And so the more you can put them in a separate bucket, that's good. And what I like to do is estimate my total expenses in that bucket for the year, and then I divide it by 12, and then I see how much money that is per month, right? Because let's say you have $1,000, for those who can think this way, like with numbers. If you're spending $1,000 a month regularly, and then let's say you notice your vacation and travel and other kind of emergency expenses are, let's say, $1,200 a year. Well, that's $1,000 a month. Or sorry, $1,200 a year is $100 a month, excuse me. So you're already spending $1,000, and then on average you're spending another $100. Well, that totals up to $1,100 a month, right? So you might say, okay, great. So if I want to be able to sustain myself, I know I need to earn at least $1,100 a month, right? On average, and that will get me through. Ideally a little more, so you have a cushion, but it was just for an example. Great. So let's go to the next slide. A few more important topics on goals and budgeting, and a few that are specific to this presentation. So first is credit and emergency funds. So credit means a couple of things, right? One is your credit score. And this might seem like a big, scary, mysterious topic for people, and I totally get that. Thankfully, there are a lot of great online resources for this. A couple of great websites are Credit Karma, Karma, and Financial Samurai, and they just have articles and different resources around your credit score. And the higher your credit score is, the better chance you have of getting certain loans or getting approved as a renter, and you might also get lower interest rates, which can save you a lot of money in the long run. So it's worth looking into and seeing how you can improve your score. It's important for getting things like I mentioned, loans or even leases of cars or a mortgage. And one key tip here is typically people want to make sure that they're paying at least the minimum monthly payment on each credit card that they carry a balance. So even if you have a balance, there might be that minimum payment, $25. As long as you're paying that, yes, it might be accruing interest, so the balance might grow, but that will keep your credit score high if you're consistent with your payments. That's one of the key things they look for. The other thing that credit tends to signify is credit cards, right? Like we were just talking about, credit card debt. So credit card debt and emergency fund are the two most important initial objectives to deal with when you're really thinking about budgeting and creating the foundation for your financial future. We'll start with credit cards, right? And this can apply more broadly to other debts, but there's reasons that the credit card debt is actually more important to pay off in a certain sense than student loan debt or a mortgage or a car loan. The main reason there is because they have a higher interest rate. That means that each month on whatever your balance is, the credit card company is charging you an additional percentage. So usually on an annual basis for a credit card, that percentage might be anywhere around like 15 to 22, 23%. So let's just say it's about 20%. Student loans are typically in the realm of 4 to 8%. And I don't know what car loans are, but I think car loans and home loans tend to also be in that like 3 to 8% kind of range. So imagine that for your credit card debt, you might be paying 2.5 to 4 times as much interest. That ends up money that you have to pay back at some point. So along with that, with credit cards, the standard advice is to pay back your whatever loans you have, credit card or otherwise, whichever one is the higher interest rate first, right? And there's other schools of thought, but that's the kind of conventional wisdom. If you want to learn more, I would just suggest writing down these two ideas: debt snowball and debt avalanche. There's a lot of great videos and articles out there about those two as different methods for paying off your debt. Second is emergency fund. This is the money you've set aside for emergencies. So typically, the advice is to have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses set aside, whatever that means to you. That might take you some time to get there, but I remember with one client, they just started rebuilding their emergency fund. They never had one. They had $1,000 in there. And then one of their kids needed dental work. And guess what it cost? $1,000. And at first they were really stressed. And then when I spoke to them, they said, yeah, but it was really a relief once we took a breath, because this is what that money's there for. And we don't have to put it on the credit card and have more credit card debt to deal with, right? That's what the emergency fund is there for. So this is there, like I said, for big expenses that may come up. So you might notice a little bit of relatedness to those periodic expenses I spoke about in budgeting on the last slide, right? So here's some things you might want to consider. Point 2, companion animals. They cost money, right? And they also get sick. And sometimes that can cost a lot in a short span of time. So some people like pet insurance, and I've heard mixed reviews. I'm not an expert. Sometimes I think it's great. Sometimes it seems to not really pay as much as you'd hope. So you want to be prepared for that, right? And a lot of you probably do have companion animals. Let me just adjust here. Another big important topic for your emergency fund is personal sickness, right? You also may want to have money set aside for a security deposit. Let's say you're living somewhere rent-free, maybe with friends or family. Then you need to move out and get your own place. You need money for a security deposit. Other things, like I mentioned before, are family events like weddings, vacation and travel, things like that. And the emergency fund can help you save towards some of these goals. And when things catch you by surprise, then you have some money there. Another thing for the emergency fund, and why I like to build it up, especially for people who are passionate about their causes, is if your job ever gets too much and you've got 6 months worth of expenses saved up, you can gracefully exit and you won't be floundering and have to look for the first job there is. You'll be able to take some time to reflect on who you are and what you're committed to and what you want in life. And then you can move forward when the moment feels right. Okay, great. So the third topic, donations and activism. So if you're like me, and I suspect you are, you're really passionate about animal rights and other causes, and you're going to want to give, right? Your time, your money, your energy. And as I mentioned before, organizations have big needs because there are big issues we're battling out there in the world, right? I want to invite you to have the courage to stick to your plans. Once you've developed goals and a budget, to really stick to it. A lot of us may have limited income. Like I said, maybe we chose jobs that pay less or give more money or give more time for activism. And it's also really stressful to choose which organizations to support. I've experienced this myself, a lot of guilt and shame. And I just want to let you know that you are not at all alone with that. This is extremely common, both in regards to time, money, and energy. And, when you budget, you're able to actually give mindfully and from a place of love rather than a place of guilt. So this happened to me the other day. I have a budget category for charitable giving and donations, and it was the end of the month, and there's a lot of folks experiencing homelessness in the Bay Area, as you may know, and I'll get asked repeatedly if I can give them any money, and so sometimes you just kind of by default end up saying, no, sorry, but have a great evening. And that happened to me the other day when I was in the train station, and then I remembered, it's almost the end of January, and I think I have some money left in my budget. And so I was able to reach in my wallet. I had $5, and I gave it to this woman, and she was extremely grateful. And it was nice because I could give from a really centered, grounded place. And it felt different than just each time having to make that pressure-packed decision, oh my God, what should I do? And I feel so guilty, right? So budgeting is a really powerful tool. The other thing I think is worth saying on this is I am hereby giving you permission to unfollow Facebook fundraisers. It's all the rage now. Organizations make them, individuals make them on their birthday, they make them on a post, and I love it because it's raising money for good causes. And I give you full permission to unfollow those. Okay, no reason, especially if you already decided I'm not going to give to this particular one, no reason to be reminded of it constantly. It's just going to stress you out. It certainly does for me, right? Um, okay, so I'm going to just briefly talk about vegan and conscious investing. You may have heard about this before. There's a few individuals and organizations I just want to mention who are doing really great work. I got to meet Alicia Robb at the Animal Rights Conference last year in LA. She's a vegan financial advisor, and she has an organization called Next Wave Investing. There is also something called a vegan ETF. ETF is a particular kind of investment that's really cool because anyone can buy it, and it's invested in companies that score a certain number on this vegan, I guess there's like a metric for how vegan friendly or entirely vegan they are. And it's being put out through an organization called Beyond Impact Advisors, and that's run by someone named Claire Smith, who is over in the UK, and she does amazing work. Just got to meet her a few weeks ago. There's also vegan venture capital funds that are investing in startup companies. So a couple of these are Kale United, which just took a round of funding, and also Stray Dog Capital. And if you're interested in this and you're at that point where you're able to invest, I encourage you to continue doing your own research. Hopefully those will be some good resources to get you going. Okay, self-care and finances, one of the key reasons that I'm here. So in general, I want you to encourage you to think holistically about your life, including your self-care, right? Think about your time, your energy, and your money. These are all essential. Number one, I want you to prioritize yourself, right? And I hope you've heard this before, but it's really true and it's worth repeating. You matter and your needs matter. Number two is, you see, hashtag worth the money. I like to use this on social media. You want to ask yourself, what is worth the money for me, given my preferences, given my situation? And go ahead and enjoy that, right? So I'll just show you real quick a picture here. That's me in the middle. On the left in the black dress is my good friend Ashley. On the right in the red dress is my girlfriend Kelsey. And this is the three of us. We're holding, you might know, dolls Lock, Shock, and Barrel from Nightmare Before Christmas. And one of the things I love is music and theater. And so we bought our tickets to go see the San Francisco Symphony play a live orchestration of the soundtrack from The Nightmare Before Christmas while the movie was playing on a big projector. And it was incredible fun, right? And those tickets weren't cheap. However, I looked at my situation and I said, this is something that for me is really worth the money. I just love it. I feel alive. It's fun, right? So I encourage you to seek those things out for yourself. The other thing is, I mentioned before, budgeting and the relationship to guilt. So again, wherever you're watching this, I want you to raise your hand if you've ever felt guilt or shame for buying a particular thing, right? Or maybe even just wanting to buy it, right? Maybe you're like, oh, this is such a stupid purchase. I can't believe I'm doing it, right? So for me, this was like baseball cards. I loved them as a kid. And then as an adult, I was like, oh, I can't buy those anymore. Like, you're going to spend $5 and get something that's worth 5 cents out of the pack. What a waste of money. It's like a lottery ticket. What am I doing, right? The beauty of the budget is that it actually gives you that permission. When I started keeping my budget in the first month, I said, oh, look, it's close to the end of the month, and I've got some money left over in my personal, general catch-all category. You know what? I'd like to buy some baseball cards, right? And it was great. It was so nice and fun. I pulled a really nice autograph card of someone named Starling Marte, an all-star from the Pittsburgh Pirates. If you know him, kudos to you. We're fellow animal advocate and baseball fans. If not, don't worry, right? But now this helps me work toward enjoying things with no guilt. The last point here is get creative. There are different ways to save money, different ways to earn income, and different ways to get services or experiences for yourself. One thing I do is I barter. So I actually will trade coaching or other services. And currently I'm trading coaching for massages. I'm trading it for singing lessons. I've traded it for website help. It's really powerful, right? And this way I don't have to always lay out the cash. Another thing is to maybe consider using apps or other free tools, YouTube videos for things like the gym or for meditation or yoga. There's a lot of beauty and power in going to the class. But experiment. Maybe you'll find out you actually can do it on your own and get pretty much the same outcome. Okay. Yeah. So a last tip, just a linguistic thing I love to do. And a lot of people are like, I really want to get a massage, but I don't have enough money. And they use that word but. I invite you to experiment with flipping it to the word and then see what happens. I want to get a massage, and I don't have enough money to afford one. Oh, well, maybe I could consider some different ways. Do I know any massage therapists? Maybe I could offer them some arts and crafts that I made. Who knows what might be out there? So I want to go now to the last main topic, and I just want to check for a moment. I know you're seeing my screen, but just checking on the chat how we're doing on time. Um, Lisa, if you're there, how much more time do we have, just so I know how to structure this?
I'm here, and um, we have about 10 minutes or so. We can go over a little bit. It's fine too.
Okay, so 10 minutes before Q&A or including?
That would be including.
Okay, so I'll go through this quickly, and I'm happy to share these slides on the webpage, the money story, but I'll just introduce the topic. Okay, click here to start sharing this screen, and let's go back to it. All right, perfect. So your money story, as I explained at the beginning, is essentially the relationship you have to money and finances, and it's been there since you were basically born. It's influenced by a whole lot of things you can see on the screen, right? Your parents and your family, your culture, your religion. Society has certain expectations of people who look like you, who sound like you, who act like you. They have expectations of people who are your gender or share your sexual orientation, right? And even if we don't think that those things are our truth, it's really powerful to consider what those things are and how they may have influenced us, right? That actually gives us a place of power. And over time, I think you'll start to see how they may be influencing you. These other prompts here, just easy, hard, or scary. It's like, do you think money's scary? Maybe it's an easy topic. Maybe it's a hard topic. Earning, spending, and saving, just how you relate to your own ability to earn, spend, and save. And future expectations, like maybe you're just like afraid, like, oh my God, my finances are going to be a mess in the future. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I'm going to make a ton of money and I'm not even worried about it, right? Whatever that is, it's going to give you some insights. The last thing, I don't think we have the time for it, but I like to go through an activity in my workshops and invite people to tell their money story through words and or visuals. I find there's a lot of power in even doing something unorthodox like drawing out your relationship to money. And this is also really powerful if you are in a relationship, have a significant other who you share money with, because you can kind of do this work and share with them and vice versa. It's kind of a safe, easy way to start having money conversations. And it also deepens your understanding of yourself and each other, right? Including some things that might trigger you, why you make choices you make, why you made a career choice, and then also clarify your values and what really matters. So unfortunately, we don't have time for the activity. I want to make sure to leave some space for Q&A, but I will share that slide on the money story, this gray slide before that. I'll find a way to share that on the event page, and feel free to reach out with any questions about it. So now I'll hop over to the Q&A.
Great. So I think that's my cue also to invite everyone to ask questions. And we have folks who are with us in the webinar who are welcome to just type your questions into the chat box. I know that Adam's very savvy, so he can go and check it out. Also, I would invite people, if you'd like to, you're welcome to turn on your webcam just by pressing the icon. If you hover your arrow and your cursor up at the top of the screen, you can see where it says mute video or open video. You're welcome to open your video, say hi to us, ask questions, and also you can unmute your audio as well. There's a little microphone icon. And if you're with us on the phone, you can press *4 to unmute yourself and ask a question. And actually, that's what we're here for right now, is just any questions you might have. I know Adam shared so many helpful tools. I'm like beaming because I'm so excited about all these tools. This is a whole new way to look at finances, and I'm very, very grateful for this mindful finance idea. So let's see if anyone would like to ask any questions. I'm also going to pop over to our, looks like we've got a chat box question.
Yeah, so we had a couple. There's someone asking if we can repeat the websites, and then
Hmm.
also if I could post a list of resources. I'm happy to do so, and I think that would cover both. Dharmata, do you know particularly which websites you were referencing? Feel free to write that in there and I can clarify, but I'll put a list of resources, absolutely.
And can I mention one thing, Adam? You put together like a special page with a link that was for this webinar, so you could probably
Yeah.
put some of those websites on there.
Ooh, I'll
Um,
have to see if I can play around with the formatting or not. I'll see if I can. No promises, but definitely on the webpage, and I'll do my best.
One was for Dharmata saying it's for vegan business people, something for
Yeah.
was it
So I think someone linked to it above, the Vegan
vegan
Leaders in
leaders.
Corporate Management, veganleaders.com, and it's also a LinkedIn group. If you were also asking Alicia Robb, which is ALICIAROBB, she is the vegan financial advisor. There's also, let me see the names just because I wrote them down, I forget them. Beyond Impact Advisors, who have a vegan investment fund, and also Kale United, like KALE, and Stray Dog Capital. They're organizations who invest in vegan companies.
Wonderful. That's very helpful. And it was Kearney actually who said if on the Facebook event page, maybe you could jot some of those down there.
Yeah,
That's
for
a place
sure.
that many of us can access pretty easily. I actually took notes. I took lots of notes. This was very helpful. Um, so just curious with if anyone else has questions either about investing or self-care, anything related. Got some people sharing their webcams. If you have any questions there, that'd be great. And also for Adam, if you get any questions, any common questions that people ask you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I saw Kearney said, why did I choose tax to specialize in? I basically always love numbers and finance, and I took a few tax law classes during law school, which is a general course of study, and I just really enjoyed them and did really well. And so it seemed like a natural fit to go into that area. Kind of like putting puzzles together, which I enjoy. Um, and yeah, just for what you said, Lisa, so one thing I wanted to share, people kind of say like with activists, it's like, oh my God, I'm making all these donations and I don't even know how do I look through them? How do I get a handle on them? Well, this is a great question because the same techniques will actually help you uncover a lot of other expenses you have, including subscriptions to services you may have forgotten about. And the answer is to actually just look through your credit card statements and look through your bank account statements and just go there and try and see if you can figure out which each thing is, right? And at some point you'll be like, oh my goodness, it happens to everybody. This happened to me. My girlfriend the other day was looking, she said, hey, what happened? Like, there's a subscribe and save on Amazon I didn't have. I said, oops, I ordered I used subscribe and save to get a good savings on, I think it was toilet paper, and I forgot to cancel it because I ordered, she has Amazon Prime, we put it on her account. And it's like $30 of toilet paper got delivered to our old house and never came back to us, right? So it's really powerful to go through your accounts and your statements from time to time, and that'll help you track down the donations you're making. And then again, you can just be mindful about, is this a donation or a subscription I want to keep? Or is it one that I think for now I might want to pause and consider again later?
And we had one question that is actually on the Facebook Live, and
Mhm.
that is about vegan coin. So are you familiar with the vegan coin, and do you have any
Yeah.
insights about it?
So I was approached about vegan coin. I'm not an expert on it. I am on the marketplace there actually. So if you are in it, you can trade, I guess, like vegan coin for my services. I forget exactly what I have listed on there as far as prices or whatnot. I think the idea is to create a kind of vegan economy, and I think the concept is great. And I think it's also really challenging to execute something like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it evolves over time.
Hey, good enough. That sounds very interesting. I learned about that at the Vegan World 2026 conference. There was
Mm.
someone from Israel who came to talk about the vegan coin, so it took
Hmm.
me a while just to even get the concept. Um, so,
Yeah.
and I think there's another comment in the chat box there. Um, oh, okay, that might have been one. You answered the question about specializing in tax law.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Okay. I had a couple of other slides just to kind of wrap it up.
Yeah,
So should I just
sure, perfect.
Okay, I'll hop to those, and if people want to stay on, I mean, I don't know about Lisa, but I can stay on for a few minutes afterwards. But just for the sake of honoring people's schedules, we'll look to complete within a couple minutes here. Let me get back into presentation mode here. Okay, so here's my contact information. Feel free to take a screen grab or a picture. As you may know, I'm Adam Kol, the JD, I'm a lawyer, and the LLM was the Masters in Tax Law. A lot of people don't know what those mean, so I'm clarifying. And AHK Coaching LLC is my business. That's where I am the couples money coach, and I specialize in helping couples stop fighting about money and create more love and intimacy in their relationships. That's the phone number where you can call or text me. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at adam@ahkcoaching.com. And I made a special webpage for you all, which is a subpage on my website, ahkcoaching.com/IDA webinar, IDA like in defense of animals. And you'll just see a video thanking you for coming to this presentation. There's also an opportunity if you want to sign up for my mailing list and you have the opportunity to get tips and tools around your finances and relationships. Feel free to do that. And if you're interested in continuing the conversation with me, you can also sign up for a time there to explore the possibility of working with me. You can also feel free to message me through Facebook, my personal page, or my AHK Coaching business page. You can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn as well. I'm on all the social media platforms. So feel free to reach out anywhere on the event page. Would love to continue the conversation with you. And that's all. That's a wrap.
Wow. Well, that sounds like a very good idea to get some personal one-on-one info to give specific examples of things that you noticed, like checking over the bills and looking at the budget and realizing, wow, how much am I spending on cat food? And one of the things you mentioned about animal activists, and just bringing it back to our community, is I remember years ago saying, oh, if I bring in one more kitty, it's just one more little mouth to feed. And I always had open doors for like many rescue cats. And then after a while, I realized, oh, then they're going to get sick, and I'm going to have thousands of dollars of vet bills, and it was really overwhelming after a while when I came to that awareness and started to realize before I picked up the little kitty on the street, I had to calculate, oh, that's going to be a couple $100s, and that's going to
Right.
be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just, this is not just with cats, right? But with all these things in life, but especially companion animals are definitely a big topic. It's like, imagine the panic and stress, how much you can minimize that if you're able to pre-plan for some of these things. Life happens. We can't ever plan for everything, but there's a lot that we can do to really do 80, 90, 95% of the work in mitigating the kind of variability and the risk in really key ways. And just, for those of you on the call who are like, oh, should I take some of these actions? It's like, well, just consider what would it make available to you, right, if you had your finances really in order in this way, and how would it feel for you, which might be really distinct from what you feel now, and hopefully in a good way. And that's what can motivate you as you move along doing the work.
I love that. I think your attitude is so wonderful and helpful for all of us
Thank you.
because it allows us to have inner peace around the finances because we know, oh, you know what? I have the couple $100s to pick up that cat right now, so I'm going to go do it.
Exactly. And then you can be calm and not stressed, and the cat will get the care that they need, right? And then everybody wins all around.
Yeah, so I just want to thank you with a very
Thank
full
you.
heart. I'm so grateful to you. It's something that we often don't talk about as activists, is the
Absolutely.
finances. And, I've, as being part of the support line, people call and they're anxious and worried about their finances. So I really wanted to be able to present to our community some resources. And you've got all of them there, all wrapped up for us. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'll definitely go back through my speaker notes and my presentation, and I'll list out the resources. I'll try and do that either tonight or tomorrow. So look out for it, and hopefully it'll be value to you.
Perfect. And thanks to everybody for joining us. This is,
Absolutely.
really helpful when you're here. We get feedback and we get to interact with everyone, and that's why we're here, is for our community. So thanks to
Indeed.
everybody. And just know that we do have these sustainable activism webinars every month. And so tune in to the next one. You'll get a little reminder if you've joined on our if you've registered, and then you can check out some of the other speakers that we have. And we do have other events as well that we do each week. Next week we're going to be speaking with Jess Ang, who is a spiritual intuitive. So we've got our finances and we've got our intuitive, and that's all part of our Activist Appreciation Month programming. And you can find a little more about that at idausa.org/activist month. So it's all part of the same picture. Again, thanks to everyone.
Thank
I
you,
hope you
everybody.
have
Yes.
a wonderful, wonderful evening, and hope to see you again soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, Trish, I'm happy to hang on. Yes, for sure.
Okay. We'll be, some of us will stay and some of us will go, but just thanks so much to everybody who's joined us
Thank
online.
you to everyone who joined, for sure.